Hold up, it's that time of year again, as the leaves begin to change and a crisp chill fills the air, and the pumpkin spice monster returns. There's no better time of year to curl up with a good book and get lost in the enchanting worlds of fantasy. I mean, every season is reading season, but there's something about the fall that is just so cozy. It is time for another seasonal recommendation video. It's not quite spooky season yet. However, the fall is the perfect time to explore the realms of both cozy and dark fantasy, where magic, mystery, and adventure all intertwine. And I have a lot of recommendations for you, so go ahead and pause the video, brew yourself a cup of tea, go grab a pumpkin spice latte, whatever hot beverage you prefer for the fall. Just do whatever you need to do to get cozy, and I'm gonna be giving you guys a ton of recommendations. This is my ultimate guide to fall reading. I'll be recommending the perfect fantasy books to read during the fall. This is going to be a mix of cozy fantasy and more creepy dark fantasy. And hey, some might even be a mix of both of those. Now, I do try to make these seasonal recommendations almost every year, but there's still more books to recommend. There's always more books to recommend. I'm still gonna include some of the ones from previous years just because this video is my ultimate guide, but there is definitely going to be a ton of new recommendations. So don't worry, you're gonna find some good recommendations here, so make sure to like and subscribe, all that YouTube stuff. But first, real quick, so later this year, I'm actually traveling to Mexico for the very first time. I'm super excited, but my Spanish is very rusty, to say the least. But thankfully, the sponsor of today's video, Lingoda, has the perfect challenge for me to see big progress fast. The Sprint Challenge is an intensive language learning course to help you stay motivated and build daily learning habits. With Lingoda, you learn from certified native speaking teachers. I really love that it's super flexible and convenient. You can choose your own lesson topics, and classes are available 24/7. And with small groups, a maximum of 5 people per lesson means you get a more interactive classroom experience. The Sprint is a 2-month intensive challenge where you take 15 lessons per month, or 30 lessons in total. But if you want even bigger progress, then you can do the Super Sprint. With the Super Sprint, you take 30 lessons per month, or 60 lessons in total. And my favorite part is that you get rewarded for learning. Upon successfully completing the challenge, you can choose between 50% cash back or Lingoda class credits, which are worth 2.5 times the monetary cash back. Now, they also recently created a language sprint tracker, so you can track your challenge by scratching off your progress and keeping track of your journey until the finish line. The Lingoda language sprint is just what you need to stay committed and motivated to reaching new heights in your target language. So join the challenge. Click the link below for more information and use my code CAPTURED to get 20 euros or $25 off your Sprint registration. And thank you, Lingoda, for sponsoring the video. Okay, moving on to the fall recommendations. I'll be recommending both adult fantasy and young adult fantasy, and to start off is a series I'm incredibly nostalgic for. The Redwall books span over 20 novels, and it is the quintessential cozy fantasy. These heartwarming tales of courage, friendship, and feasting are the ideal companions for the autumn season. Seriously, these books have some of the best descriptions of food. It's set in a vividly described medieval world inhabited by anthropomorphic animals. The Redwall series brings a sense of nostalgia and warmth. I read through a bunch of these growing up, and to be honest, they still hold up really well. The descriptions of the abbey, the surrounding woodlands, and the hearty feast within its walls evoke a cozy, inviting atmosphere, kind of reminiscent of fall gatherings. Now, while the Redwall books are undeniably cozy, they're also filled with action and adventure, whether it's defending the abbey from marauding vermin, embarking on perilous quests, or solving riddles. These tales of heroism and bravery, they just resonate with the spirit of the season. Next is Uprooted by Naomi Novik. This is a very cozy book that is kind of a blend of like dark fairy tales. It's set in a village on the edge of an ominous, corrupted forest. And I don't know, evil forest vibes just screams autumn to me. I'm a big fan of Over the Garden Wall, and I just love those kind of autumn, creepy forest stories. And Uprooted is an excellent example of this. I really love the book Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik, and if you read Uprooted in the fall, that sets you up to read Spinning Silver in the winter. And if you didn't know, Spinning Silver is a perfect wintry read. Now, for a quick read, I would recommend Shadows for Silence in the Forests of Hell by Brandon Sanderson. This isn't the only Sanderson novel on this list, but I wanted to recommend this one because this is a novella that often goes overlooked by Sanderson fans. It takes place on the world of Threnody, where dangerous shades, the ghosts of those who have died, roam the wilderness in wait for the unwary. And the story revolves around Silence, a tough and resourceful innkeeper who runs her establishment on the outskirts of the deadly forests of hell. She's also secretly a bounty hunter who hunts down criminals who visit her way stop, but in order to collect her next bounty, she has to enter the deadly forest. Now, I told you I enjoy a creepy forest in my stories, and the undertone of this novella is much darker and creepier than other Sanderson works. If you want to read this one, you can actually find it in Arcanum Unbounded. Another cozy fantasy book, Under the Whispering Door by T.J. Klune. Whenever I go to a bookshop, the book covers by this author always stand out to me. I've just never really given him a chance yet, but now this book it really surprised me. This is a really great, thought-provoking exploration of life, death, and what comes after. The story revolves around a man in his 30s named Wallace who unexpectedly dies and then finds himself in a tea shop called Charon's Crossing. And this tea shop serves as a gateway to the afterlife where he can transition to the other side. And here he meets the owner of the shop who helps guide souls to the afterlife with compassion and care. Now, Wallace grapples with the idea of death and how he left unresolved issues behind and unfulfilled dreams. It tackles some really serious themes like forgiveness, love, living a fulfilling life, redemption, all that, but it has a blend of like humor in it as well, and that's something that I think TJ Klune does really well. I love the voice and just the narration of the story. I love the humor. It has some really great heartwarming moments. It's definitely a perfect cozy book to read during the autumn. While recommending cozy fantasy stories, I would be an absolute fool to not include Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. The thing is, I've already mentioned this in my previous fall recommendations. But if you haven't given it a chance, then it's a very cozy story. It is one of the most coziest fantasies I've read. It's a slice of life fantasy, which means there's low stakes, but a lot of charm. Now, Travis Baldree is coming out with a prequel called Bookshops and Bone Dust. This releases on November 7th. This one takes place 20 years prior, but it's still a standalone novel. You don't need to read Legends and Lattes first. And this next book is going to move from a coffee shop to a setting just as soothing, a bookshop. Obviously, it's in the title. It turns out our loving orc protagonist from the first book spent a summer recovering from a wound in a small beach village. And what happened here is what set her on a path to become an aspiring coffee shop owner. Now, I don't know about you, but being a book lover, I always love reading about cozy bookshops, and Travis Baldree has already proven himself as a fantastic writer. So I am super excited to read Bookshops and Bone Dust when it releases on November 7th. In the vast landscape of fantasy, there are characters who become iconic, and then there's Elric of Melniboné, who transcends the realm of fantasy to become an absolute legend. If you haven't had the pleasure of delving into the dark world of the Elric saga, you're in for a treat. Allow me to introduce you to the complex and compelling anti-hero, as well as the epic saga penned by the brilliant Michael Moorcock. Elric is the last emperor of the stagnating island civilization of Melniboné, but don't be fooled by his royal title. This character is a frail, anemic albino who uses special herbs in order to maintain his health and his vitality. And then he comes into possession of this soul-stealing sword named Stormbringer. Elric's character is truly a study in complexity, a morally ambiguous figure that's torn between a sense of duty to his people and the corrupting influence of the demon sword that he wields. The realms of Melniboné and the Young Kingdoms are richly detailed, immersive, and brimming with a sense of ancient, decaying grandeur. And really, Moorcock's entire multiverse is marvelous. You'll find yourself exploring dreamlike dimensions and vivid atmospheric landscapes. Elric predates many of the anti-heroes that we've come to love in modern fantasy. Characters like Geralt of Rivia from The Witcher, or Jorg from The Broken Empire, or Animander Rake from Malazan. All of these characters owe inspiration to Elric. So if you're looking for a dark fantasy story that has some Lovecraftian elements and just a whole lot of weirdness, then the Elric saga is pretty quick to get through, and I would say it's a perfect autumn read. Now for a fall manga recommendation, I'm gonna be super original and recommend Junji Ito. I actually have just been getting into Junji Ito. I haven't read Uzumaki yet, but I have read Love Sickness, and I started reading Shiver. I'm gonna finish it later this month. I'll probably make some videos on these. Anyways, very enjoyable reads, very creepy. Another manga recommendation, Berserk is one of the best dark fantasy stories in existence. I really need to continue on with Berserk soon because I was enjoying it so much. It is, and I know it just gets better. This is a manga series that I want to make many more videos on. I made a video on the first arc, but I have read further since then and it gets so much better. So yeah, I do plan on making more Berserk videos in the future, and if you haven't read it yet and you're a fan of like grimdark fantasy, then you need to read Berserk. Now, if you're a fan of Brandon Sanderson's epic fantasy novels like The Stormlight Archive and Mistborn, you should also give some of his middle grade and young adult books a chance, and I think you're in for a treat with The Rhythmatist. I really enjoyed this book a lot, and I'm hoping he's gonna write a sequel here at some point. In the world of The Rhythmatist, there are select individuals who have the ability to bring their chalk drawings to life, and use those drawings to defend against these deadly creatures known as wild chalklings. Now we follow Joel, a non-rhythmatist who has no magical abilities, and he goes to a prestigious rhythmatist school. Despite his lack of abilities, he is super infatuated with the idea of rhythmatics and dreams of one day becoming a rhythmatist. But then students begin disappearing at the academy under suspicious circumstances, and Joel begins to learn about this mysterious being known as the Scribbler. Joel and Melody unravel the secrets of rhythmatics and confront the dark forces threatening their world. I think this book is perfect for any age group. I found it to be really compelling. There's some great twists and turns in there, some engaging characters, and a dash of humor. Witch King is a standalone novel by the wonderful Martha Wells. This is a super interesting and complex fantasy. It had me hooked right at the beginning. The main protagonist, Kai, awakens in this watery prison. After being murdered, his consciousness was dormant of the passing of time, as he was confined in this elaborate water trap. He awakes to find a lesser mage trying to harness his magic to their own benefit. And then Kai grabs a new body, he saves his friend, and he sets out to find the mage responsible for his imprisonment. And yeah, like I said, the beginning just had me hooked right away. It does kind of slow down a little bit later on, but I still found it to be a very compelling book, and Martha Wells is just an amazing author. Basically, Kai has this ability to like occupy the body of deceased mortals. And I really loved how each character kind of brought us more world building, as they're all from like different areas of the world, and I thought it was just a really great book, and I love to see more standalone books in fantasy. Now, Tor actually sent me an early art copy of the book, and I happen to have a hardcover copy as well, and I'm gonna be giving this one away. This giveaway is open to all my Patreon members, so if you want to join, all you have to do is be a member of my Patreon, and then on my page, there will be a poll, and on that poll, you need to vote enter giveaway, and that will automatically put you in the giveaway. I'm gonna be keeping it open until October 16th, and then I'll be choosing a random winner from those of you that voted on the poll. I'll put a link to the poll below, and this is the first of many more giveaways I'm gonna be doing on the Patreon. Now, speaking of Martha Wells, there's a new Murderbot Diaries book releasing on November 14th. This is System Collapse. I was sent an early copy by Tor, and Murderbot, if you haven't read it yet, is just so much fun. It's science fiction, okay? I'm kind of cheating the rules with this recommendation, but I can't help it. The Murderbot Diaries is just so much fun, and I don't know, I feel cozy when I'm reading it, so I'm gonna recommend it. And again, this is releasing on November 14th. That gives you enough time to catch up on all the other Murderbot books. They're pretty fast reads. Next up, we have Dreams of the Dying by Nicholas Lightzow. I'm sorry if I butchered that name. This is a haunting exploration of mental illness and morality and the darker side of humanity, and it is such a fascinating book. It's a blend of fantasy and mystery and psychological horror. Dragons of Autumn Twilight. This is book 1 in the Dragonlance Chronicles. This is the first book you should start with when diving into Dragonlance, and it's one of my favorites. I have so much nostalgia for this book. And obviously, you can tell by the title, it's a great book to read in autumn. These books are classic fantasy. They use a lot of tropes I love and some that I don't like, but they're so much fun. And I would really love to get back into reading Dragonlance at some point. I should even make some videos on it. Let me know if you're interested interested in seeing that. For some reason, the fall is always when I end up rereading the Dark Elf trilogy by R.A. Salvatore. The subterranean world of the Underdark, the city of Menzoberranzan, and the journey of Drizzt Do'Urden as he is exiled into the dangerous Underdark and becomes this primal hunter before regaining himself and making his way out into the surface world. There's something there that just gives me fall vibes. And like I said, I've reread this trilogy several times now. I would say like around 5 times, and it's always in the fall. Eventually, I would like to get caught up and read all the Drizzt books because I find them to just be really fun and fast-paced, and I just love the character of Drizzt and all of his companions. I would highly recommend if you're into D&D or if you are playing the new Baldur's Gate 3, then I think you would definitely enjoy The Legend of Drizzt, starting with the Dark Elf trilogy. Now, obviously, if you enjoy Harry Potter, then I think the perfect time to read it is in the fall and into the winter, because experiencing those seasons in Hogwarts is just so atmospheric. Maybe you're not a seasonal reader and you don't care, but for me personally, I just feel way more immersed when the atmosphere of the book I'm reading kind of matches the season outside. And for someone who's always dreamed of exploring Hogwarts, staying inside during the cold weather and reading the books is the closest thing I can get to that. Now, I'm always ready to recommend Sabriel by Garth Nix. This is one of my favorite young adult series, and I think it deserves so much more attention. Sabriel is one of my favorite female protagonists of all time, and the world in this series is vast, mysterious, and beautiful. You only see a few locations in the first book, but you get a sense of the wilderness of the Old Kingdom. And basically, the Old Kingdom is like if the Pevensies went to Narnia and discovered it had been overrun by the undead 200 years ago. And it's up to the job of the Abhorsen, or in this case Sabriel, to control 7 bells to keep the dead asleep. Also, Mogget the Cat is amazing. I would highly recommend this series, and the audiobooks are fantastic as well. Tim Curry is the narrator. If you're interested in a good audiobook for the fall, then I would highly recommend this. If you're wanting to read a classic of your childhood, something that's not too scary but just a little bit creepy, and is a quick read, then I would recommend the Goosebumps books. I mean, it's a classic. I grew up reading Goosebumps, and they're just a lot of fun. Now, obviously, the characters here and the plot can be fairly simple, but it can be a cozy book to read if that's what you're looking for. There's also some really great audiobooks for Goosebumps. I've listened to several of them, and I always find these books to just be a lot of fun. Oh, okay, it's actually got more than I thought there was in here. There's like 5 Goosebumps books in here. And like I said, they're just a quick, fun, nostalgic read if that's what you're looking for, and they have coziness and creepiness. It's got the best of both. The Castings Trilogy by Pamela Freeman. This is a series I do not see talked about really at all, and that is surprising because it's really good. Autumn is a season of transition and change, and this theme echoes throughout this trilogy. The delicate balance between nature and magic is a central theme, and it resonates with the shifting of the seasons, making this a perfect book to read during the autumn. Now, the 3 books are Blood Ties, Deep Water, and Full Circle, but I would recommend finding this bind-up copy because the books really, they seamlessly transition into the next one, and the pacing is really great, so I feel like it's best just to read them all together. Now, we get a lot of point of views here, but I found the main 3 to be super compelling. Bramble is one of my favorite female protagonists. Her strength and courage and her wild nature, I just really enjoyed her character. And the world building in this series is amazing. From sprawling forests to ancient ruins, this is a world where there's elementals and ghosts and just a super immersive experience. And again, I think this is a perfect fall book. It's very thought-provoking, beautiful, and heartbreaking as well. I really enjoyed how Pamela uses different points of view in this book, some of them being from the past and some from the present. If you read these books, you know what I'm talking about. It was just such a wonderful way to provide some backstory and some key information, and I think it worked really well. Now, it also incorporates a lot of elements of mystery, and Autumn Evenings by the Fireplace is the perfect time to unravel these intricately woven plot lines. Yumi and the Nightmare Painter by Brandon Sanderson was a really pleasant surprise for me this year. I enjoyed it a lot. It's kind of a romance fantasy, but then there's some darker elements in there as well. If you've watched the anime Your Name, this is kind of similar. There's this body swapping thing going on, where Yumi and Painter keep swapping bodies every time they fall asleep, and in Painter's world, it's covered by this shroud of darkness, and there's these nightmares that appear that can only be fended off by the Painters. And again, obviously, that's perfect for a fall read. And while it does have some dark twists and maybe a few creepy moments with the nightmares, this is definitely more so a fantasy romance, and I think it's a very cozy read for the fall. Now, while it does contain some Easter eggs from Sanderson's Cosmere, this is a standalone novel, so you don't have to read any of his other books before reading Yumi and the Nightmare Painter. But I also want to mention that Sanderson's Secret Project number 4 is releasing in October, this October, so that's another book I would add to your fall reading list. Now, how could I not mention the Dresden Files by Jim Butcher, set in modern-day Chicago where magic and the supernatural are all very real. Harry Dresden is a wizard and private investigator, and each book features a unique, engaging mystery with a supernatural twist. It's got werewolves, vampires, fairies, and a bunch of other supernatural beings. Now, Harry's investigations into paranormal cases, combined with his wit and humor, offer a cozy reading experience, even as he's confronting these malevolent forces. The mix of magic and detective work and otherworldly creatures is perfect for the fall season. Now, I will say the series does kind of show its age in the beginning novels. Once you're past book 3 or so, it begins to really pick up, and I've been really enjoying the Dresden Files. Now, last year, I recommended A Night in the Lonesome October, and I'm gonna recommend it again in case you missed that video, because this is perfect for October, considering the book is divided into chapters, each representing one night in the month of October. Now, this is a tale heavily influenced by H.P. Lovecraft, and the basic concept is that a variety of famous literary and historical figures and monsters are somehow all playing a mysterious game. It's all narrated from the quirky point of view of Snuff, a dog who happens to be Jack the Ripper's companion, and Jack is one of those figures involved in the game. There's a lot of other animal companions as well. It is such an interesting read, and you should definitely read it. Now, maybe you just want to go back and read some Tolkien. That's understandable. Tolkien's beloved classics, The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, have become literary comfort food for readers around the world. And whether you're exploring the Shire's idyllic countryside or journeying through the ancient and mysterious forests of Middle-earth, Tolkien's vivid and detailed descriptions of nature are just really cozy. And sometimes it's best to just revisit a classic. And that was my ultimate guide to fall reading. I am a seasonal reader. I don't know why, but I love reading depending on the season, and the fall is, I think, the perfect time to read a cozy mystery or a dark, creepy fantasy story. And I hope you enjoyed these recommendations. I hope you found some new favorite books. Let me know in the comments if you've read any of these, or if you have any recommendations for me. Make sure to join my Discord server if you're looking for a community of fantasy fans. And if you want to support the channel and enter a giveaway for the chance to win Witch King, then make sure to join my Patreon. A huge thank you to all of my patrons. You guys make these videos possible. I want to give a special shout out to my top tier patrons, Jacob Blair and Josh from Red Fury Books. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for the support. I appreciate it so much.